Hi, sir. When you have a chance, would you please sign in? Thank you.
That big. I was just looking at.
15 members. I guess only 13 could count towards quorum, though, so that brings our number down one.
15 and 2 not.
15 with 2. 50's not on the board anymore. Diana's with the chair.
I'm in. Hello, nice to meet you. I was thinking hello. Climb up here.
So no other board members until I start the actual webinar. Attendees can't join.
Oh.
So that'll be one more minute. I don't know how it works. All I know is these are the buttons I have to push, and hopefully it works. Yours now.
Oh, thank you.
I would guess that's Jonathan, considering he ran the committee last night and he works at NYU. Detective. All right, 6:30, we're going to start the webinar. You don't have to start the meeting yet, but we are live.
Okay.
So you're more than welcome to reach out to your own committee members. You can work through us as well. If you are reaching out to them, we'd appreciate it. CC us on it, just so we know what you're trying to do. Yeah, we're happy to supply that to you. Do you mean to encourage them to come to future meetings? So I would also speak to Julio about that. There may be people on your committee, nobody's immediately coming to mind, who perhaps shouldn't be on your committee, and you'd have a smaller number to make quorum. Did you have a chance to sign in? Great, thank you. We try not to do 2 nights in a row, but we didn't have a quorum last night either. Yeah. We didn't have a vote though. So that, not that that's fine, but the fact that we're recording it and people watch it after makes it better, at least.
Yeah. Sure.
Hmm. So you could certainly make a very good argument. I can't think of another committee that would fall under, that it would fall under environment.
I know that they're always looking for more funding, but I don't know exactly how we set that up.
So we're not the ones to go through if you're looking for funding, but exposure, we can certainly help with that. And if it's a not-for-profit, have them get me a flyer. I'll put it on your side. Right? Oh. Yeah, for once, the one good thing that they did, that they listened to us on, is they turned on the heat. Unfortunately, they turned it on Monday, and then we had, days in the 80s. But we're not going to tell them to turn off the heat.
Hey, hey everyone, we're gonna start now since it's 6:35. So the first thing I had on the agenda today was to do some introductions, but I think I'm gonna switch things around. I'm going to have the presentations first and then the introductions. All I ask is board members or any public members for introductions, just think about any goals or issues that you would like this committee to tackle on. So that would be great. Well, hopefully like the presentations will kind of spark some ideas for you all. So we'll just get started with presentations. So the first one we have is from, roll call, sorry.
Evening, everybody. So we're going to do roll call. When I call your name, please acknowledge. If you are joining us on Zoom, please remember to unmute yourself, acknowledge your name, and then acknowledge again, mute yourself again. If you are not a committee member, but you're a board member, I'm going to write your name down, but I am not going to call your name. So let's start with Diana Aguilar. Thank you. Joan Body. Sylvia Augusto. Esteban Chavez. Thank you. Gabino Morales Escamilla. Mary Jo Eister. Thank you. Mary Jo, you do not count towards quorum. Diana Gonzalez. Nicole Huang. Daniel Kaminsky. Thank you. Jeremy Kaplan. Jeremy, I see your hand up. Aaron Keith. Paul Mack. Marilyn Melman. Rosie Moda. Sam Sierra. Jeremy, by the way, you do not count towards quorum. You do not have a quorum.
Okay, so we'll move on to presentations. The first one we have today is from Rob Buchanan and Celeste Lecomte. I hope I said that correctly. Okay. You guys can come to the podium and speak, right? Do we have a microphone for them?
Yes.
Or you can sit here. Yeah. Scooch over.
You have some slides, you're pulling those up, right?
We don't have introductions on our slides. We can introduce ourselves.
Okay. Well, do you want to start?
I'm Celeste Lecomte, and I'm a board member with the Gowanus Dredgers Canoe Club, which is based in Gowanus. But we have boating programs in Red Hook and Long Island City, and 2 different kayak programs in Staten Island. And we're here to talk about a pilot effort in Bush Terminal.
And my name is Rob Buchanan. I work at Rocking the Boat in the South Bronx, which is a youth development organization that's based on boat building, sailing, and environmental science. And yeah, we're here to talk about the boating program that we ran this summer in Bush Terminal Park, and also about some ideas for the future down there involving young people and boats and community events. So, and this is very short. We just have a few slides to show. I guess I'll start with the first one here. It's a timeline, and a group of boaters back in 2008 started a group called the New York City Water Trail Association, and that was to support a Parks Department initiative to create a water trail around New York Harbor. So basically a network of launches and landings and places where people could put canoes and kayaks in the water. And we, from the beginning, looked at this stretch of the Brooklyn shoreline and thought this is really a great place for boating. It's and particularly the park. It's got protected inlets. The prevailing wind in the summer kind of blows in towards shore, which is a good thing. It means that people don't get blown out into the middle of the harbor. And it's just a beautiful place with all that western exposure in the afternoon. So we're always interested in it. And in 2018, when I was working at Billion Oyster Project, we got a grant to build a boat with local middle school kids, and Industry City offered us space. We built a boat and launched it in Bush Terminal Park in the summer of 2018 and ran a couple of community boating events that summer. And then we did the same thing the next year in 2019. And you can see that picture of the green boat there in the lower left that's Guacamole, which kids named because we had that during our breaks every day when we were building. And that boat is still here. It's still in the park in a container that Billion Oyster Project owns and stores oyster monitoring equipment in, as well as that boat and canoe. So after the pandemic, kind of, like a lot of things, put an end to that. And so we finally got around to introducing this idea this summer, and we ran 2 events. And Celeste is going to go into the details of those, but basically we ran one in July and one in August. They were free paddling events. The dredgers brought a bunch of canoes down. We towed some kayaks in from Red Hook, where there's another community boating organization, and we pulled out Guacamole. And with all those boats, we put these events on, and they were really successful and popular. And people, well, Celeste is going to tell you what they said, but I think people would have been very happy if we'd been able to do that every weekend all summer. And that really is the goal, is to be able to do something like that and to have the neighborhood and the city have that opportunity here. It's a great place. Sunset Park is a great place to put young people on the water. Or any people on the water. Because of those protected embayments, because of the prevailing wind, I think it's probably the best place in the Upper Harbor for this kind of thing. So that's what we're aiming to do, and we'll get into what that really means to us in the next couple of slides. But Celeste, why don't you go into that?
If you advance the slide, we took a bunch of pictures when we were out there. We had an incredibly full day. Rob was there in the July session, and I was there in August. So the photos are from our club photographer on August, but we had over 150 people come out that day. And they were a very large, diverse group of folks. Big families showed up. The average size of the groups that showed up were 3, but many of them were larger, more on the order of 6. Up multi-generational groups coming out to play, getting in the water for the first time. The thing that I really loved about doing this programming out there is that it's incredibly safe as a place for people to get out. And we had brought canoes, kayaks, we had the rowboat and Guacamole out there. And so people stayed all afternoon to try different styles of boats and just had a blast. There was this one mom who was out there with like 2 kids and her mom and a dog, and they just like kept rotating through in different combinations, and they were calling their friends, and more people were coming down, and the vibe all afternoon was really great. People were using the park and really talking to us. So I will tell you, go to the next slide, even though it's less fun to look at. But we decided that we would do a quick survey to just get feedback from people while we were there. So we had an online survey form, but because it was only in English and that was not necessarily the majority of people attending, We conducted in-person verbal surveys with the form in English and Spanish. And there were a lot of Chinese speakers there as well who worked it through in English with us. So we recorded a lot of these responses manually, but we asked people for their overall feedback about, would you recommend this to a friend? What did you like about it? What could we do to make it better? We asked where they came from. And, this slide has a lot of the details about it, but we had 31 of the groups that were out there. So the majority of people who participated agreed to talk to us afterwards about their experience. Most of them came from the 2 zip codes that are right here in this area, 11220 and 11232, the closest ones to the park. About 3/4 of them, but people came from a variety of other locations around the city because they had seen advertising that there was walk-up free programming that day, and they were curious about Bush Terminal Park in particular. People really talked about how excited that they were. One of the things we heard over and over from people is that this is a waterfront community and there is no place for people to get out onto the water. A lot of people talked about knowing the history of the place and that it was a kind of economic hub and that there had been docks and that they live right here and that they had never imagined that they'd be able to get on the water in their own neighborhood and how cool that was. I've asked for this link to be shared out with everyone afterwards. And as you can see on the slide, there's a little thing that says listen. There's actually a play button there and you can listen to audio recordings we made of a lot of the surveys. So you can hear this from people in their own words. It's pretty cute. There's a lot of kids, so you'll enjoy it. But people really talked about one of the things that they liked about it is that it's an incredibly unusual spot in the harbor to get out and be safe. There's not crazy long lines. It's a very neighborhood and community feel. They felt really safe. The views are incredible because you have these beautiful views of Manhattan and downtown Brooklyn, and you can just see the whole harbor and you can see the working harbor, but it's not so close that it feels unsafe. People got a good experience with sort of like how the tides change in the basin and just really gave us a lot of feedback about how great the spot was. The feedback that they gave us about what could be improved on the location is better boating access. There's not a formal boat launch in Bush Terminal Piers Park, and so we were launching off of a sloped rocky surface that used to not be public access, but has become informally publicly accessible, and so we took advantage of that. It worked okay, but people had to kind of wade in. It's a little tricky to launch boats from that kind of a surface, particularly once they're kind of heavily loaded with non-boaters who don't quite know how to scooch themselves into the water. So it was a fun adventure, but people talked a lot about wishing that there is a floating dock or some easier way to get into boats. We agree. They talked about how Bush Terminal Park has some failings as well. The access to the park right now is fairly limited with all of the entrances except for the one closed. And once you're inside, all of the amenities are very far away. There is very little shade for people hanging out anywhere outside of a few distinct areas. We had a lot of people kind of going up into the tree areas where they're not supposed to go in order to get out of the sun. They talked about the lack of food and water access inside the park, and like the challenges of parking. And once you go to one entrance and then you realize it's closed, there's a lot of backtracking. So I know that's a little outside the scope of our program, but given that it's the community board, I thought you might like to know that. Anyway, really super fantastic feedback, and I got super excited about it. I really love the way that boating programs bring people together to really be in community with people that they don't know. It was great to see everybody spending a bunch of time just socializing and getting to know their neighbors and, hanging out and talking with us and asking a bunch of questions and getting curious about what's happening with the harbor and what's happening with the park. And it's just a really different space of exploration and discovery. So it was a great program and I would love to continue doing it.
So, I mean, that really is why we were asked to come, is just to give you a report on what happened this summer. But I think, in addition, we'd just like to take a couple of minutes and talk about what we'd like to see, which is some kind of more permanent base here for community boating. And by community boating, I'm talking about the same kind of program where the boathouse is open to anybody in the community. It's an educational center, a place where young people can come and become familiar with the harbor. And, it could be all kinds of offshoots there in terms of job development and the connections to the burgeoning wind industry. But it really should start at a young age, and young people getting comfortable in the harbor and aware of all of the dimensions of the harbor, not just the environmental angle, which is obviously really important to us, but also the maritime commerce and all the job opportunities that are there. There's a whole range of educational opportunities. And so we just want the community board, and I think you do know of or the board in general knows of our interest in creating what we're calling tentatively a waterfront education center, although I don't know, it's kind of a clunky name, but we'd like to see something like that happen here and be part of it. Celestia is a CB7 resident. I'm not, I live in Fort Greene, but we'd really love to see something like that happen and see community members be part of building it. And I guess, you know, the process that you should be aware of is that we've been talking to the EDC about possible space in one of the Made in New York campus buildings. It's called Building A. It's about to open, right? Supposedly going to open any day now.
Ground floor map of the space. It's covered by the text, but you know, you can look at it later.
And so that's an exciting possibility. It certainly doesn't have to be there, but if you know, indoor space that opens onto the water is really valuable, and we think, you know, it would be in the EDC's interest to support something like this, for all those reasons that you know, education is part of economic development, sort of the first step, really, and waterfront education is important if this agency is going to control all of this waterfront in the city. So I don't think we have a specific ask tonight, except say that this is in process. And at some point, we'd love to come back to the community board and ask for, you know, an endorsement of this idea, a resolution that in support of this group, or this kind of group at least, taking occupancy of a space like that. So Celeste, I'm sure you have some other things to say here. I can't really read what we wrote on that, forget what we wrote on there.
I mean, basically what he said, I guess, thinking a little bit about what goes into a waterfront education center, the only thing I would add is that there's a lot of stuff where it's just being at the waterfront provides a lot of different opportunities to engage people. So the Gowanus Dredgers, we have a boathouse at 2nd Street on the Gowanus Canal, and we do a lot more there than just boating. We have, our boathouse also serves as a community art gallery that has a different curated show every month. We host artists and performers who need public community space, and we offer that either for free or for a very low donation. We partner with the mutual aid organization to use it as a drop off and pick up, and we let them use our tables and chairs in our bathroom. And it's this really wonderful kind of like plug-in spot right there at the waterfront in the community. And because a lot of times, you know, waterfront spaces can be a little bit isolated, a little bit desolate when they're not sort of actively being used for, you know, business or during the day. Having this kind of programming that's there all the time and has evening events, we do floating concerts, we do, you know, musical jams on the shoreline. It really adds a lot of vibrancy and shows people that this is a cared for public space, making it safer and just more accessible all the time. So I think the benefits go beyond just specifically waterfront things to overall community development. That's it. I think that's all we have. Yeah, please.
Hang on, you need the microphone. Thank you. We have to record every word. No, nobody on Zoom.
Every precious.
Mary Eister, I'm on the committee. I have a question. First of all, Celeste, you said we wish we could have done it every week, or the participants did. What are your major obstacles to doing that?
Access and permission, I would say, are the big ones. You know, we had permits from parks for 2 days. I think a regular foothold with a clear programming schedule would allow us to build the volunteer capacity because it is free. We need regular volunteers who can show up and, you know, provide safety and make sure the waivers are taken care of. The Gowanus Dredgers provide insurance coverage for all of these activities in a variety of locations, as I said, around the city. And so we would need a partner organization here to be able to steward that kind of work.
But
You have more.
we had to bring the boats in from other places because we only have 1 boat or 2 boats stored on site. So we had to tow in the kayaks, and the canoes got paddled down from the Gowanus, but it's still, would be difficult to do that every weekend, and it would be much better to have boats on site and to have a base. So
We also normally use those boats in Red Hook and Gowanus on the weekend, so we changed our programming location for those days.
Great.
Jeremy Kaplan, you can unmute yourself.
Yeah, hi. I was wondering actually if there's been any conversation about, I remember going to a Pier 6 EDC planning and design thing, and there was a discussion about boating area on the Pier 6. Have you had any conversation with the EDC about, your program having a space on the new sort of retrofitted pier that will be right adjacent to the Bush Terminal entrance?
Start, but Rob jump in too, which is we have, and we've heard a lot of community interest at the various meetings. We've pushed for it as well, but we've also recently heard that that is likely not to be included in their final proposed design for the pier. That there may be places where future access could be added, but that they're not intending for it to be there at the moment. I haven't heard that through an official channel, just through talking to folks who are in a position to know.
I think it'd be a really good question to ask EDC directly, and, and maybe get them to come and talk this over either in front of this committee or the full committee or something. But there are other options. If an access point isn't built on Pier 6, there could be a floating dock with a gangway to the bulkhead, the esplanade there. That could work. There's some other spots around Pier 5, which is the old kind of disintegrated, the nub of a pier there that could also work for access. And I think it would be really great to hear, because that's what we heard from at that first charrette about Pier 6 from everybody, almost everybody. It was like the number two, after the first reaction was, we don't want any parking on this pier. And the second most common thing that got said is, we want access to the water. So they've heard that, and I think to hear it again from the community board would be great, and to, get them to really commit to doing something.
Questions? Nope. Oh, yeah, the chairman has a question.
So no question statement. Before this meeting started, you were here a little early. We were talking about what was promised to this community more than 20 years ago when we voted in favor of this park. Two of the things that were promised to the community but had never been funded were an active Pier 5. So we don't want to lose that as part of the park. So I think that would mesh well with your goals. Also, there was supposed to be an environmental center, which I think with a few edits, an environmental education center makes sense. So it is something that has been promised to the community, and we have voted in favor of it in the past. So I think even without a resolution, we can continue to advocate for those promises to be kept by the city and EDC. Know him, so we just asked Adam Tanaka.
We're moving on to our next presentation from Adam Tanaka.
Very excited about boating in Bush Terminal Park as a resident of CB7. I look forward to seeing that happen. And I've been on the Gowanus dredgers canoes in the canal, which was really fun, especially looking in the water and thinking, I really don't want to fall in there, but I'm close to it. That's cool. I think it was a PDF. That's it. Great. Okay. Good evening, everyone. My name's Adam Tanaka. I'm a board member of an organization called Playground NYC. I am also a resident of CB7 and a neighbor of Julio Pena, who I think is the chair of the community board. If you go to the next slide, Playground NYC is an organization that's been around for about 8 years. Our mission is to transform the city through play. We do that in a number of ways, but really the primary way we do that is by operating an adventure playground on Governor's Island. That adventure playground has been going since 2016, has served over 50,000 children. And the reason I'm here tonight is building on the success of the adventure playground, we are looking for a second location to expand our offerings. But I'll get to that in a little bit. First, I wanted to give you just a bit more background on who we are and what we do. So if you go to the next slide, I can't really see the slide very well, but I think this is an image of the yard on Governor's Island. I don't know, have any of you been on Governor's Island or seen the yard? So we're located quite close to the boat terminal that comes from Brooklyn Bridge Park. It's kind of a bit deeper into the island. And, you know, really what an adventure playground is, for those who don't know, it is a kind of a term of art. An adventure playground is basically a space built by children for children using upcycled materials. And parents are not allowed, but there are trained play workers on site who are supervising the children's play, but not steering or directing the children's play. And actually in Europe and in Asia, adventure playgrounds are quite common. In the US, less so, but we're hoping to change that. And really what's amazing about adventure playgrounds is they're an environment that children can really shape their own world. And it's not a structured environment, it's not a scheduled environment. It's a space that fosters creativity, collaboration. They're also quite safe, even though they may not look that safe. We have a lot fewer accidents than conventional playgrounds, partly because we have the trained play workers who are supervising. And, you know, really everything we've heard from 8 years of operations on Governor's Island is this is really a magical space, and a magical space not just for the kids, but also for the parents who get to chill out and not have to watch, you know, the kids' every move, because they know that they're being, you know, attended to. If you go to the next slide, I think it just has some information on what an adventure playground is that I already covered. One thing I should mention is, you know, even though operating the yard is our main activity, we also organize pop-up programs throughout the 5 boroughs. We actually did a pop-up program in Sunset Park right before the pandemic. Actually, it was before I was on the board. And we do a lot of partnerships with different city agencies, especially DOE. We do sort of play education trainings with teachers, and with DOT, we've partnered on pop-ups in plazas and things like that. But really, the main bread and butter is the adventure playground, and we really believe that that's the environment that is most transformative for kids. If you go to the next slide, I think I covered this. You can go to the next one. Yeah, I mean, I think this just speaks to the experience that happens in the yard. I mean, if you go there, you just see kids, you know, climbing on things. You see kids building things. You see there's a whole zone called the smash zone where kids are just allowed to smash things. Every time you go, it's been kind of reconfigured and reimagined. And we have quite a few partnerships with different organizations to source the upcycled materials. So even what's in the playground kind of evolves over time. And one thing I should mention about the current operating model is essentially in the summer, during the weekdays, we have a camp, and access to the camp is for a fee. It's a sliding fee, but it's paid access. And the revenues that we generate through the summer camp basically support free weekends throughout the rest of the year. And right now on Governor's Island, that's March to November. For our second location, we would love for that to be year-round. But, you know, the vast majority of the kids who come visit the yard are coming for free during those weekends. And really the goal is to, you know, make play accessible for as many children as possible. So right now we have a self-sustaining model. If you go to the next slide, This just talks a little bit about the impact, over 50,000 children served, the partnerships, and I think I've covered most of this, so I can keep going. So we launched a search at the beginning of the summer for a second location. We absolutely love Governor's Island. For any of you who've been there, it's a magical place. But many of the things that make it special also make it a bit challenging. There's no community on the island. There never will be a residential community on the island. It's quite hard to get to, which reduces the sort of diversity and the size of the audience that is using it on a regular basis. And it means that we can't develop sustained partnerships with organizations like schools and so on. So what we're looking for in a second location is a location that's really embedded in a residential area, ideally one where we could operate year round, and where we can serve a more diverse audience. And really, if you look around the world, the traditional concept of adventure playground is very rooted in community, and that's kind of the very central to the mission and something that we would really want to focus on. If you keep going, I think that just comments on the fact that we have funds in reserve to actually pay for the build out. And if we keep our current operating model, although we're thinking about potential modifications to it, it is also a self-sustaining model. So we're not looking for a subsidy. All we're looking for is basically free or cheap, very cheap land. And our agreement with Governor's Island is, $7,000 a year license agreement to use the space. So I connected with Julio and with others on the board a month or two ago as part of this search. We've been talking to potential locations and organizations all around the city. As a Sunset Park resident, I would love to see the adventure playground land here. And actually, as part of our public search, we got quite a few responses from Sunset Park residents. Proposals for Bush Terminal Park, actually, also for Industry City. We've been in touch with the Industry City ownership, and there's no space available, which didn't surprise me. We've also been talking a little bit to the Parks Department, and are starting to advance conversations just because so many of the responses that we got in our RFI were recommending, unsurprisingly, locations in a city park. If you keep going, I think I'm pretty much at the end. I mean, we don't need to dwell on this. This is just the site requirements, size, and we need utilities, we need grass, a bit of shade, ideally. And I think if you keep going, it's probably the last slide. So thank you all very much, and happy to answer any questions. Sorry, I couldn't really see the slides very well, so it was a bit disjointed, but hopefully that all made sense. Thanks for having me. I wouldn't be able to hear otherwise, so.
You said the site requirements it seem to include space, but I mean, you're not building swing sets and slides. What equipment, if any, is part of the site?
I mean, in terms of what we would need to have it delivered with, or what goes onto it?
What needs to go into it to make it operative? I mean, you said that there's a lot of upcycling and the kids, and it changes. Are there permanent structures or facilities that need to be in place?
Yeah.
Or is it a big square that you fill with cardboard and wood boxes?
Excellent question. I mean, I think in a neighborhood location, we would need to have a fence. And we've already been thinking about how we might co-design that fence with children in a community or do some sort of, co-created structure just for security reasons and also visual, camouflage privacy. There would be sheds on site that would be locked, that would have equipment like hammers and other tools that the kids would be using when they are there, but we would lock up for safety reasons. We would have a toilet on site. I mean, right now on Governor's Island, it's kind of a trailer, restrooms. And then utilities just for, washing of hands and that sort of thing, water. Aside from that, the rest of it is really the play equipment, and that is kind of an evolving, environment. One of the big differences with Governor's Island is we don't have to worry that much about security and people either coming in and taking things or coming in and injuring themselves. In a neighborhood location, and this is the case for most adventure playgrounds worldwide, you do need some security, and you need to lock it up at night when you're not operational. So depending on the context and the sizing, that's something we would definitely need to integrate. Hopefully that answered your question.
Jeremy Kaplan, you can unmute.
Yeah, I want to say I'm very excited about the potential of you looking at a second location here. I have two kids, and both of them really love the adventure play at Governor's Island, and it is it's a trek.
Do that.
Yeah, yeah. And it is, yeah, you want to do it too. It's and it is obviously a trek to get out to Governor's Island, even though the ferry now has made it easier. The ferry stops. But yeah, I'm curious like what you've explored space-wise outside of just Bush Terminal or Sunset Park, because I'm also thinking sort of outside of the box. There's an organization, Coco, that's like, I think they have a space on 17th or 18th Street that actually has a kind of similar setup. And they do a lot of like upcycled play and imaginative play and stuff. But I just think about that there's some people that have kind of offered up or thought about like community garden spaces, and we have a few community gardens in the neighborhood that maybe like those kind of spaces might be ideal versus thinking about, I don't know if you thought just primarily about within Sunset Park or Bush Terminal, or if you thought about sort of other community garden spaces, or even spaces like I know that people have even offered like backyards that are adjacent to areas that they've thought about as a community garden or public space. But yeah, if you have sort of other ideas about what you thought about where you could place this.
Well, thanks for the question, and thanks also for the enthusiasm for the playground. And I hear a fan there in the background. Well, we're looking citywide, so we've looked at sites far beyond Sunset Park. I think we've looked at sites in four boroughs so far, and we're looking at a whole range from city park location to private land to community gardens. I mean, if you have recommendations of specific community gardens to speak to, we would love to speak to them. We have been in touch with the New York Restoration Project, which manages and owns a huge network of community gardens, and they noted that there was a problem with mission alignment in terms of the community garden. Really, the focus is gardening and green, and that our use is just different, and that play is not central to what at least they do with their community gardens. But maybe there are others in the city that would be very interested in the partnership. We also know and love the work of Coco. They're kind of doing well, and I don't think we want to take away from the space they already have and are already programming very well. But a space like that could work very well. And we haven't looked at anything specific in Bush Terminal Park. My sense is it might be a little bit further from. Actually, it'll be interesting to know what the nearest school is to the park, because I think proximity to a school is important. But yeah, open really to any suggestions that anyone has about places in Sunset Park or beyond. We're very much in the kind of opening the sieve and then taking in as many ideas as we can.
So the bad news for your organization, but the good news for the community is the playground at Bush Terminal Park is starting construction this spring. However, there are other locations that I think might be appropriate. I wanted to ask if you were dealing with the Parks Department. So I was happy to hear that you are. We recently learned that they're looking to double the size of the children's playground right up the block at Sunset Park itself.
Right.
There are a few spaces that are considered parks that are more passive. I'm thinking like Mayrose Park, which is right along the Prospect Expressway. Have you considered other options such as a church parking lot or a schoolyard or on top of a building?
Those are all great suggestions. I think, we just don't know what's out there. And part of the purpose of doing a public RFI was to try and suss out, as many opportunities as possible. A church parking lot is actually a great idea that I had not thought about. And yeah, we're in active discussions with the Parks Department. We met with Marcy Mayer and several others at the Parks Department a few weeks ago. So we're kind of getting the conversation started because we also understand a license agreement with Parks or anything would take a long time, and they know their own portfolio better than anyone else. So
I know they want to double the size of that children's playground, but they don't have the funding to do that.
that's interesting. So that's the playground in Sunset Park.
Sunset
itself.
Park, which was with the
Great. Got it. I'm ready to sign. Just tell me where. Thank you. Great, thank you. And I think you have my email, but just please feel free to reach out or look on our website. Thank you.
Now we're moving on to a presentation from the Department of Sanitation. Maybe speaking for them. Oh, perfect.
There's no slides, nothing like that. We don't do that at sanitation. It's not necessary. I really just have 2 announcements for everybody, then happy to answer any questions that everyone has. Number 1, starting November 12th, you must containerize your trash if you are in a building that has 1 to 9 residential units. So you do not need to buy the official NYC bin. That's not until 2026, but you need to put your trash in a bin starting November 12th, when you put it curbside for collection. That's incredibly important. You can get a ticket for that down the line in January. So do keep that in mind. Number 2, if you are a business owner and you do not clean the front of your property, your fines are going to increase. Currently, the fines are $50 for first offense and $100 for every subsequent offense. That's going from $50 for first, $300 for second, and $500 for third. I have flyers at the front for both of those topics that I just brought up, for both of those announcements. And for the businesses, those fines are for sidewalk cleanliness, like cleanliness in general, and sidewalk obstruction. So that doesn't count if you don't have like your private card or sticker showing or anything like that. It's really just for cleanliness and sidewalk obstruction. That's it. About anything, sure. You need the microphone.
What counts as sidewalk obstruction?
So for instance, an A-frame sign that, let's say, is in the middle of the sidewalk and it belongs to your business, that's a sidewalk obstruction.
I live in CB7 with an automotive business directly in front and they block the sidewalk all the time.
Sorry, oh,
For example, cars parking across the sidewalk because there's like a detailing business
where?
yeah, through everywhere, basically
Oh.
on Third Avenue.
So report that on 311 for sidewalk obstruction.
Oh, I remember now. We were told, or we recently learned, unfortunately, that now there are 2 ticketing times instead of just 1.
For what?
Um,
For
cyber-
residential or commercial?
Residential.
I was always told there were 2 since I've been working here.
Okay.
So I don't know when there was only just 1, but correct. For residential routing hours, that's 8 a.m. to 8:59 a.m. and then 6 p.m. to 6:59 p.m.
Us 7 days a week.
Yep.
I'm talkative today. So I bought my bin about two weeks ago, maybe 3. How long does it take to get delivered?
You just ordered it 2 weeks ago?
Yes.
Oh, not until after November. They're only anyone that ordered one before August is getting them for November 12th. It's a lot of people that ordered them.
Understood. So my question then, am I given some warning that it's coming? Because,
We'll receive,
thank you. That was my question. I didn't want it to come when I'm on vacation and then it disappears. Thank you. Thank you. No, I'll just steal somebody else's.
Oh, yes. No, sorry.
About that we need to start using the NYC bins, like officially in 2026.
Yep.
Wondering like what specifically about these bins, like why are New Yorkers being forced to buy them when they look to be the same as any other regular bin you can get at Home Depot? Like what makes them so special?
They're retrofitted for our trucks, and there's a bar in the front that most other bins don't have, and that's what's gonna be able to grab on. The truck will be able to grab onto it and tilt it in. It's retrofitted specifically for our trucks. No other bin is. Nobody was talkative before with the kayaks.
So, where do we put them? Just on the curb? Do we put them on the street? Or in the
Your
sense of-
bins?
Yeah.
Like starting November 12th? Yeah, curbside, like you would your bags.
normally, and then they'll just put it back and we
Yeah.
put them.
Then bring 'em where you have to, yeah, wherever you have to put them.
And you said there's a possibility, not a possibility, in January we'll get fined.
Yep.
Like, do we have a dollar amount yet?
The least can be $50. I
Okay.
don't have the dollar amount in
Something
front
like
of me.
Okay.
Yeah. It won't be less than 50.
No, no.
Without a doubt.
Said, and this says, buildings with up to 9 apartments.
Yep.
What about the rest?
So in spring of 2025, we will have a different containerization plan for buildings with 10 or more units and then 30 or more units.
Say Again, it's 2025?
2025, yeah. So next spring. They're gonna have to get containers or tilt trucks, and they're also might be taking away parking spots for containers. Just something to look forward to. Taking up parking spots for garbage can?
And yes, take-
Okay. Oh,
I know this is about containerization, but can you talk about the changes to the compost program that are going on?
the only changes to compost is that it's expanding to the Bronx, Manhattan, and Staten Island. Literally no other change, nothing's changing for Brooklyn. Just keep doing what you're doing. Nothing has changed. Oh, well, correct. Yes, starting January, yard waste is mandatory and that you'll be enforced for that. And then starting in the spring, because we were waiting for everybody else to catch up, Brooklyn was second after Queens, you will be, you can receive a summons, for food scraps if they're not in a compost bin. Man, what, how?
It's about like sidewalk cleanliness.
Sure.
I'm only speaking for my building, like we always clean our sidewalks, but then we'll have dog walkers who will just leave their, their dog's business on our sidewalks. Are we also responsible for this? Like, are they gonna be more fines for them? Because we shouldn't be cleaning up after them.
It is incredibly difficult to give a dog walker a ticket. Cause they need to show me their ID and I need to watch them. I need to watch the dog go to the bathroom. I need to watch them look at the poop and walk away from it. I need to see them do all of that. And they gotta give me their ID. Nobody really walks around with their ID when they're walking the dog half the time unless they're going to Starbucks. It's like, they don't have that. But unfortunately, yes, it does fall under the property owner's responsibility to maintain and clean the sidewalk and 18 inches into the curb. So yes, that does fall under you only because it's just really difficult for us to give a ticket for it. But we try. We really do. We're trying to enforce the dog laws way more than we ever have. There's been a few campaigns about it. A couple of other council members, like in Manhattan, for instance, have come down really hard on and is like asking for more enforcement, and we're trying as much as we can. But we can't just follow dogs all day, although I would, because that sounds like fun. So I'm sorry. Unfortunately, it does fall under you, well, the property owner of your building.
On one complaint, like we had a video and nothing like ever came about it, but I understand it's difficult to track.
Because it's a video picture, I can't go by that, unfortunately.
I have to tell this. I had a constituent who brought me a CD-ROM, well, we still use CD-ROMs, of 500 pictures of dog crap. Kept wanting to show it to me. I said, I believe you. I have dogs.
That's epic. Anybody else? Okay.
So I do have the compost what you guys,
Bin,
yeah,
Yeah.
but the little plastic one, where you actually put the scraps.
kitchen
and-
container.
Right, can we order that somewhere or
Don't have any.
don't have any. Okay.
Sorry.
Questions? Comments? Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming.
No, thank you so much for having me. I'm also a resident, so very happy to be here tonight. Have a great night, everyone. Thank you so much.
All right, so that was all of our presentations for today. I did switch things around, so now we're gonna do introductions. I'll start. I'm the new chair of the Parks and Environment Committee. My name is Diana Aguilar, and I'm actually new to the board this year. I've been living in Sunset Park for around 3 years now, but I'm born and raised in Brooklyn. I grew up in Prospect Leopards Garden, so Prospect Park was my playground, so that's why I love the parks and the environment so much. Part of the reason why I joined the board was because like I have serious like concerns about sanitation and street cleanliness in Sunset Park. Like if you walk down to Bay Ridge, you'll notice how cleaner it is. And I think it's like really unacceptable that our neighborhood is dirty, to be honest. So that's like my big issue that I want to focus on. And I hope that our committee will kind of take that seriously as well. So for board members who are here and want to say hi and kind of talk about what issues they want to focus on, I leave the floor to you. Anyone, a board member first, or anyone who wants to speak? Yeah, why not?
Marlene Boccato, you can unmute yourself now.
Hello, I'm a resident on Prospect Avenue in a block up from Arrow Linen, but what I have to say has nothing to do with Arrow Linen. I'd also like to say that what I'm going to say is something negative as opposed to the positive previous presentations. So I came to Community Board 7 a couple of weeks ago with a letter and concerning my issue, which I'll go into in just a moment. And then I spoke to Jeremy a couple of times, and he suggested that I present my issue to this committee. Unfortunately, it wasn't in time to get on the agenda. So basically, this is a situation. I'm asking the community board for help or suggestions about what to do for an environmental issue relating to Park Slope Day Camp, which uses the facility at St. Joseph's the Workers' School during the months of July and August. And what the day camp is actually a travel day camp. So they have buses coming and going from basically 8 o'clock in the morning till 4:35. And these buses do not adhere, for the most part, to the 1-minute idling rule in front of a school. And that schoolyard is, even though it's summer and the actual school is not in session, is considered, according to the Department of Environmental Protection, a school. And I have called Department of Environmental Protection too many times to count. They have come once or twice, and once the buses see this DEP worker with their phones videoing the idling, they suddenly adhere to the rule. The church obviously receives money for leasing the school or renting the school. And although they have voiced interest in the issue, it's the day camp and the bus company who to date have no interest in adhering to the environmental rules. Last summer, I got 39 or 29 signatures just in my immediate area on Prospect Park and sent it to the Archbishop, whose offices are on Prospect Park West. And I did get a reply stating they would consider the rental situation. But if I'm to make a guess, I would say this space will continue to be rented to Park Slope Day Camp. Park Slope Day Camp will continue to ignore any rules. A couple of years ago, I asked the owner of the camp how he would feel about buses idling in front of his house, and he told me he would shut the windows. So that's who we're dealing with. So I'm asking the committee if there's anything they can do or any suggestions that could be made to address this situation, which affects not only me, but everybody in the neighborhood and every child that gets on that bus. What do I do now? Do I unmute?
No, it's on.
Thank you for sharing. Since this is a new issue, we're gonna look into this and we'll get back to you.
Ms. Baccato, we do have your contact information. You are muted right now if you're trying to talk.
Yes, well, I do appreciate that. And is there any time frame? Because I know it's October, but soon enough, July will come around and the same situation will occur.
For Thanksgiving, we'll try to get you an update before Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
Of course. Thank you for coming. Thank you. Okay. So
Because Hannah, I always get your title wrong, but I believe you are the local park superintendent.
Hi, Jeremy. I'm the park manager.
I always get it wrong.
Hi, everyone. Just want to introduce myself. I am the park manager who oversees parks and playgrounds in Community Board 6 and 7. Hi, Diana. Nice to meet you. I'm sorry I'm not there in person today. And congratulations on being the parks chair, the environmental chair too.
nice to meet you too. Last call, anybody else? Does anyone want to introduce themselves? Any of the board members here and speak about any, please? Yeah, please, go ahead, feel free.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kat Trujillo, and I'm the Deputy Director at Uprose. I wanted to just kind of uplift some of the recommendations that Uprose has for the Parks and Environment Committee. We are hoping to get Sunset Park declared a special purpose district, and this would change zoning so that we could incentivize things like green roofs, community solar, moving goods and people more equitably. And it would also enable us to mitigate against some of the ramifications of climate change while creating opportunities for good jobs and other community wealth building opportunities. So I just kind of wanted to uplift that. I have a flyer with more information, but I'll leave it at the front and, oh, okay, I'll give it to you. But yeah, wonderful to meet you all and thank you for creating this space.
Much for coming, Kat. Does anyone else, please? Okay.
Hey all, my name is Dan. This is year 2 for me on this committee, but last year I was a public member and now I'm a board member. So good to be here. Good to see you.
Board members here? I just want to make sure. Oh, okay.
Hi, everybody. My name is Esteban Chavez. This is my second year on the board. Professionally, I work for a Parks Conservancy. So that's why I'm on the Parks Committee, just to continue to advocate for parks and open space in this district in the same way that I do in the district that I work in North Brooklyn.
I'm Mary Eister. I'm a committee member. I'm not a board member. I've been on this committee for, well, before COVID. I don't remember when I joined the committee, but it's been a while. And I live across the street from Sunset Park. I look at Sunset Park when I look out my bedroom window. As probably was obvious, I'm a kayaker and a park goer. I'm a bird watcher. So I have a lot of interest and concern in preserving and expanding open spaces, green spaces, in the environment.
Jeremy Kaplan.
Hi, Jeremy Kaplan. My interest is, on top of being sort of a climate activist, is that I have 2 kids and we use playgrounds and parks all the time. And so I'm interested in, we're seeing a lot of new redesigns for playgrounds and how kids are using the space. So I'm really interested to help impact that and try to push parents' perspectives on what they want from playgrounds and what they want from green spaces for kids, and try to bring some of those kids' voices to those decisions. And then also, my partner as well does a lot of horticulture and is doing projects at Bush Terminal Park with our PTA. And so I'm interested to see sort of more of these kind of programs, environmental stuff. I love seeing the kayak program and the possibility of like an environmental educational component on Sunset Park. So thanks. Yeah, hey.
I have Marlene Baccato again. Marlene, you can unmute yourself.
No, I think that was a mistake. So I don't
Understood.
need to say anything. Thank you.
And that's it for hands.
I'm Stacy Boyd, and I am a former board member and former Parks Committee member. I live on 45th Street. Part-time, I run a nature and adventure play program here in Sunset Park called Brooklyn Wild. So I was very interested in the Playground NYC presentation. And we advocate for green spaces and access to nature and water. So I'm super excited about the boating and totally would have been there if we were available. And I love what we're doing for the Parks Committee, so I may be back.
That was it for our agenda. Our next meeting is planned for November 7th, so be on the lookout for, yes, because we have some, right? I think so. Tentatively planned for, tentatively planned for November 7th. We have a couple of more presentations, folks who couldn't make it today, so please stay tuned and I hope to see you there. And if you guys have any other issues that you want to bring to the committee, please, we're looking for things to do. Thank you so much. Thanks. Have a great night, everyone. Yeah. I was trying to be efficient about it. Okay. Understood, yeah. Okay.
I will not have slept in 2 days.
Really?
2 days after the election.
Oh.
I'm gonna be watching TV.
Oh, God. I don't think so. I wanted extra.